Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
So next guy, we're going to move to big now. I guess it's fitting. We've done guard, wing, now big. And we've talked about this guy in every episode so far we've done. It feels like every evaluator I've talked to likes this guy. There's a good fit in Boston. It feels like they all see in him. And you mentioned him as well as a possible fit in Boston. Definitely seems like he's going to be available in this area here. Could go a little earlier in the 20s. I've seen on some mocks. If a team like Atlanta likes him in particular, and I did hear he worked out for Atlanta and they liked him in that spot, Clint Capella is probably going to move on from. So that could be maybe the high end of where he ends up going here. But if he is available at 28 and the Celtics think they're going to lose Luke Kornet in particular here, I think this guy slots in pretty well to that kind of role, especially with some of the passing stuff we saw from him last year. And there's just so much to love about his offensive game. Defense, certainly a strength of his in college as well. And I'm curious for you where you rank him among the bigs in this class, because I've heard some people say Raynaud's the best, and obviously there's some guys more lottery projected that people love, and you have just a bunch of different names here. I even love Sorber out of Georgetown there, who feels like he's going to go a little higher too. You got the Maryland big there. There's, Queen. There's a million different people in this draft among bigs. But in terms of fit for Boston, this one almost feels perfect when you look at some of the shooting spurt he was able to put on out there, his pick and roll game, his ability to get downhill. The rebounding doesn't look great, but I feel like there's some things he could work on to fully acclimate, fully fit in the Boston system over the long term, even though he's a little bit older. This is the guy I'm starting to zero in on, me thinking they need to pick this guy.
Bobby, there's a ton of smoke around the potential Ryan Kalkbrenner to Boston Celtics fire. And listen, just because there's smoke doesn't mean that that's definitely going to be the selection on draft night. You and I both know that. But when we look at who can potentially be a great fit in the front court, you mentioned a lot of names who are probably going to go higher than the territory that Boston's selecting, unless they would potentially move up. Maybe they could move up, get someone like a Thomas Sorber, or we would expect Johan Berenger to be going late lottery to mid first round.
He's intriguing.
You never know, right? Some of these guys could fall into a territory where all of a sudden you get to the early 20s, and everyone in the Celtics war room's looking around is like, should we make a move?
That's what happened with Shyman last year. He was there at 30 and they were stunned.
Can you make a move to potentially go up and get one of these guys you had a much higher grade on? But if the board breaks to where you would expect, Boston stays at 28 and you're looking at some of the names on the board in the front court, I have Kalkbrenner right at 30 on my board. So I think this is an appropriate range for him. And there's negative buzz on social media when you go back and you look through some of these guys, because we get so much time between when the college season ends to when the draft is to evaluate a lot of film and really nitpick guys to death, right? And look, Kalkbrenner has some obvious strengths to his favor. He's always been an elite finisher at the basket in college. He's one of those guys who, if you're going to be that rim runner type of archetype, you better be a 68 to 70+% from the field type of guy. That has to be the type of finisher you are. He is that. He checks that box. He's a monstrous shot blocker. He's over 7'1". He certainly meets the size thresholds for what you would want out of a backup center in the NBA. He's a humongous body. He's not just a shot blocker, but he is one of those guys that can be a rim deterrent if you're playing him in that deep drop coverage. You aren't going to have a lot of guys who are going to want to challenge him directly at the basket. He's not one of these guys who you have to worry about in terms of getting a lot of foul trouble. Had pretty low foul rates for a player at his size playing his position over these last few years in college at Creighton. So those are some key primary strengths. And then you throw the potential icing on the cake. You mentioned a lot of what Boston wants to do is play that 5-out offense. Certainly, if you have a big man that can stretch the floor and be somewhat of an adequate spacer from three-point range. Kalkbrenner started to dip his toe in the three-point pool the last few years, and I do think that's going to be something that he eventually does in the NBA. His ability to, not on necessarily high volume, but on respectable enough volume, I think he's going to be able to shoot the three-point shot. The biggest thing that he gets nitpicked for is, if he's exclusively a drop coverage big, what does that do for you defensively in the NBA nowadays? And my counter argument to that would be, if you put him in a situation like with Boston, where you have essentially every single guy on the perimeter is able to hold their own. They're switching everything constantly. They're great at keeping guys in front of them and challenging shots up front and limiting the amount of lane penetration. If you're not putting Kalkbrenner in a spot where every single defensive possession you have to worry about him defending in space, you have enough guys who can keep those offensive players in front of you, then a lot of those concerns go away to where Kalkbrenner is that guy to man the paint, block shots, make sure he's cleaning up everything that's missed around the basket, and then you're going the other way. And that's exactly what I think Boston would be looking for in a primary backup big man. I do think, Luke Cornett, I think shuffles his feet a little bit better than he gets credit for. I don't think you necessarily worry about him dying in space, but he's another one of those guys to where maybe he's not the perfect backup defensive center, but because of what Boston has around him, it makes him look a lot better because he is that 7-footer who can challenge anything and everything around the rim. And I can see Kalkbrenner working for the Celtics in a lot of the same ways. But again, the difference, Luke Cornett's not shooting threes. If Ryan Kalkbrenner can potentially shoot threes, that's a massive boon for you to be able to bring off your bench, whether he's the second, third, fourth big, depending on, how many of these other guys are coming back for Boston. I really love that fit. It's a fit that I've mocked probably like 3 or 4 times in a row now, Bobby. I just think it makes so much sense for Boston.
It does. They could lose one of those guys, Horford or Cornett. So I love the fit. It's definitely the guy I'm zeroing in on as their selection 28 there. So
no one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way.
Let's slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke